of it being more like what Ryan shared, a little more the justice, the attribute of God, of his righteousness, stuff being restored, justice, rather than it just being like, oh, we have to have hearts so full of compassion that it just spills out. That is true, but what I'd like to, what we're going to talk about a little bit this morning here, and not take a whole lot of time, just something that's been on my heart, Steve's heart, the leadership team's heart, is we have a local needs fund. We have some of that we would love to allocate some funds to a specific mission. We would love for our church, Oasis, to just collectively support something. We have, and I have experienced this, the value in our church community of taking care of each other, I think, is tremendous. That's supposed to happen. We take care of each other, and there's a verse, I know you've shared it, Steve, sometimes, as far as people will know that we're disciples by how we love each other. Super important. Don't want to say, okay, we're going to move past that now and we're going to try to focus on something else. But what we would love to do is keep building that value that says all of us matter. There's so many needs out there that also matter. And we'd love to just pay some attention to that, get behind that. So in saying that, and this is coming from not just Steve and I personally, but from the leadership team, and this has been a little bit on the back burner, but we would love to get this in motion a little bit more. Anything you want to jump in?
Yeah, I do. Like the thing with Karen, this is the thing that makes her mad. Like, is when there is a older person bullying a younger person. Like I've got something that you don't have, and I will use it to get what I want. So that motivation, what Ryan mentioned, is really, really strong. The idea for us, for Karen, like that we would have so many resources and we would sit on them. Community, whatever it is, that we would sit on them, and across the street, just down the road, is someone who doesn't have those resources. And we, because of our safe and comfortable whatever borders, aren't doing something about that. The righteousness of God, the just part of God, says that's not okay. And I love the picture of, if you have a kingdom, just like our kingdom, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just the kingdom that Karen and that I rule, there are things inside and outside. What we would like to just kind of get the picture of as for the church is, right outside of our kingdom, there are needs. And can we just expand it enough to where we take something that we don't go out and help and then come back in. We actually say, we're going to own it enough. We're going to own it enough that when things aren't okay in your mission, we want them to not be okay with us as well. Like, just to not just say we're going to help, but just our influence, whatever it is that we're saying, inside these borders, I want things to be okay. We would like to actually expand that a little bit and bring something local in that says, man, if fill in the blanks isn't going very well, Oasis isn't either. We want to help with that.
Right, yeah. And right along with that, I know that, and I felt this because I have conversations with you. People's hearts are for others, and you guys are doing this already.
And that's an important piece. Like a personal, We're not trying to say what's important to us. All of a sudden, hey, our mission has to be your mission. That's not it at all.
Well, and you guys already have missions, and you're helping people behind the scenes that nobody else hears about. I could brag on some of you guys. It would probably embarrass you, so maybe I won't, but you guys are helping people one-on-one. What we're also suggesting is to say we'd love to, at least with one mission on an annual basis probably, gather that focus and kind of laser it in a little bit, for sure financially, and then also with it being something locally. Hopefully we've talked about that. There's overseas stuff, there's local stuff, but that we could also, like with Informed Choices, let's say we will throw them out as an example. They had some needs this last year that Ryan helped with, and Lane. Just those kinds of things, hands and feet too, not just money. you guys are helping. Don't hear this as some sort of like pep talk to get us going. I'm just looking to say, we'd like to just focus in on that. A couple of different ones that have been on our hearts, and then we'd love to hear later feedback, bring it to the leadership team. If there's local missions that you guys know about, that you say, man, they really could use some hands and feet. They could use some of the resources that we have. Let us know. Informed Choices is an easy one that comes to mind. Just looking at their website right now. Go on there. You can check them out. You maybe have already. Informed Choices, womenscenter.org. They offer all kinds of wonderful stuff. You might think, oh, they just help pregnant women. They also help, and this is the part that I love, discipling moms and dads, parenting classes, some responsibility and ownership, not just let's help you through a hard time initially, but let's keep going with this. Let's walk beside you. I love that.
So one thing, like the idea of being creative about how we can help is, for example, let's just say with Informed Choices, and you may have something that's coming to your mind, is if something is coming up in you ladies and you'd like, I would love to help more, I just can't. Like, we have families and we have kids and all of that. So like, what would it look like? So we're just brainstorming. If we just say, hey, what if we would provide, if they would need counselors, and we would say, we're going to provide babysitting, we're going to make so that you guys can drop your kids off at wherever, and you can actually go and sit down with some of these moms and do some of the things that you feel called to do, or you actually want to provide food for people, but you don't have the resources, soup kitchen, whatever it is. We do have resources, the church, and together we can do more than what you can on your own. So we're not just trying to have this cookie cutter way of saying, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We want to actually find creative ways to say, what would it look like, and could we help in different ways?
Right. Yeah. No, that's excellent. Another one that you've heard us talk maybe some about, just because we know the Hutchcrafts is the Discipleship Training Center that's going up in Harrison to help young Native Americans, and we're going to watch about a 6-minute hope story of one of the Native Americans who's kind of been helped with that. This is in no way, means this one has more priority. I just want to let you guys in a little bit on a couple of the ones that we're aware of, just because. But that's another one. I think we already support Stevens. Is that right?
Yeah.
As far as giving some overseas options as well, we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin and divide and give out in too many different ways over a 1-year period. But there was another, John Whaley was another one he had shared last year here. They have a mission that is not, I looked for resources online, it's a little bit secretive. I mean, they don't just broadcast what they do. So there is
because they work in the Middle East.
They do. They do, and over in Afghanistan, some in Asia. They work in those areas. But I've got some information on that. A newsletter that I got, so you can talk to me about that after church. But yes, just recapping. Basically, we're looking to for sure give financially, and then we would love to see support given, like really practically on the ground help when they need help. For us, almost to be call us whenever something comes up, and we'll try to help meet that need if we can and as we can together. Anything else? I don't think so. One other thing: don't stop doing the one-on-one mission within our church. Once again, not diminishing that. Also, encourage you, if there's something that you say, man, I could really use just 1 or 2 more people to come with me to go help, whatever it is, ask. Don't. It's good to do this stuff together as much as possible. Tyler, do you have that video? We'll watch that, and then I'll have just a couple more, just a little bit more after that.
I grew up in a home where my parents divorced whenever I was 6. So right away I started to experience brokenness. And so my grandma was the one who, I would say, who led me to Jesus. I remember feeling joy and peace, and for the first time feeling like God got me every day, every night, just to read about this God who heals and restores and delivers. And I literally just took scripture the way it was and I applied it in my life. And then I came to Warrior League Summit and I just walked in and I remember seeing hundreds of people here, just natives from all over worshiping Jesus. And the first time I never seen nothing like that. It just showed me what a glimpse of heaven would look like. Warrior Leadership Summit has definitely had such a big impact on my life. After the conference, Warrior Leadership Summit, there's a team that comes out of it, and the team's called Omnibus Teams. And what we do and what makes this team so special is that we don't share the gospel in churches or in tents or none of that. We share it on basketball courts, native to native ministry. It's been a team of not just warriors, but a team of who God uses continuously every summer in ways we can't even think or imagine. And to me, On Eagles Wings is not just a team, but yet it's a family. Jesus, I It's been a second family to me, having brothers and sisters who stand for Jesus and who love Jesus. And as we began to travel to these different reservations and share the gospel, we've seen God move beyond words. We've cried together, we've laughed together, we've prayed together, we've encouraged one another. And being a part of that is only what God can do. This relationship with Jesus has just taught me so much about myself, and it has given me a passion and a desire just to come back to my own people and to tell them, y'all are loved and you all matter. What I've learned from On Eagles Wings is God doesn't need nobody special. God wants somebody who's humble, and He wants somebody who we think is ordinary. And not only that, but to hear about teammates as they go home, what they do in their own communities, that's a God movement. And that is something only He can get the glory. Because although many people think Native Americans are hopeless, or whatever statistics say, or history books, the reality is God is doing something in Native America. And reality, to me, is God is still moving in Native America. I'm so thankful for the people who have prayed for Native America, who have given financially in the ways they could. Because I am just one of many that it has impacted from the very beginning to now. And because of those people, On Eagles Wings has definitely shaped me into who I am becoming. And it has shown me that God can use a les girl like me, and that I don't have to be anyone special, but yet humble. And through On Eagles Wings, through the people who have donated through prayer and financially, they are definitely a part of what God's about to do. I believe that this is just the start of something new. And I believe that God will continuously raise up young men and women who passionately love Him, to not only share the gospel to their people, but perhaps international. Because all over the world, people know about Native Americans. And to have a Native American come to them and talk about their Jesus, I believe God can do so much more than what we can think or imagine. And He will move. As I look to the future, I know that God is about to do something big in Native America.
So that is one of the missions that's just personally on my heart. They're building a discipleship training center out off of Caps Road. These kids that are on these reservations that get ministered to in the summer have their lives. There's no support. There is
Like it's truly an unreached people group.
Yeah,
It's
considered that.
an unreached people group here in America. It's incredibly dark. like on the
Yes.
reservation.
And they see the need to disciple these kids in a longer term, not just say, here's the hope of Jesus, we'll see you next year. They want to bring these kids back, teach them discipleship, disciple them at that discipleship training center for I think the semester, 9 months. Get them built up, teach them. Yeah, and there's on hutchcraft.com, that's their website, and there's tons of information on there. Anyway, just recapping, we want to give to a mission. We'd love to also give not just financially, but with our time, all of that. Do it together. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear that within the next week. Anyone on the leadership team, bring that. Bring your ideas. If there's others that your hearts beat for, let us know. We just want to get that money that's in our local needs fund doing work, doing what it's supposed to do, and helping people out.
So, do you guys know where Shepherd's Way is off of Old Caps Road? Do you know where that is? So, what they're doing, and one of the things that I wish to like inform choices, that whatever's important to you, I wish that there would be a way to put that out in front of all of us, to where we can see what each mission is doing, because it kind of ties us in with so one of the things that they're doing that's really cool, and we may have the ability to help with this, even if it's not on Eagle's Wings or on Hutchcraft Ministries, if it's Informed Choices or something like that, they're bringing all of these Native American kids there, and they're going to teach them how to balance a checkbook, how to do laundry, how to clean their room, how to have a job and keep a job. And I was talking to Ron, and he said, we're going to need places for these kids to work, because they need to go to work. They need to learn to be on time. They like all of this stuff. They're going to teach them how to do life, and then send them back to the reservation, loving Jesus and equipped. So that's kind of what at the core of the Leadership Training Center, it's that. I just underlined what Karen said. Let us know. We want to kind of have be able to expand our influence and bring in other missions and help where we can. Any questions? We are going to take like a 10-minute break again. So use the restroom, do whatever you need to do to relieve your sitting for an hour, and then we'll come back in and have the message here in about, 8 minutes or something. We're going to get started, and we are going to end. Today is going to be the last message in our Blessed series, going through the Beatitudes. And today, the title of my message is Risk versus Reward. Risk versus reward. And we think that way as people. That's the way that we think. Cost. How much does something cost me? What do I get in return? Almost all of life is that. Your kids are that way. Obedience, trading things. What happens if I don't? If I want something, how much does this cost, right? So for me, the good old example, best sandwich on earth, chicken bacon ranch. When it gets to be too expensive, I'm like, what I'm getting from this, it's not valuable enough to me for what it's costing. And Jesus invaded this space all the time, and he talked about rewards all of the time. This is what it's going to cost you, but this is what you get in return. And so in what I do, I work in sales, and this was just a little excerpt that I got from some sales training that I was taking this past week. A helping action which contains either extremely low cost value or very high reinforcement value is more probable of an occurrence than one that is high cost or low reinforcement. All that means is saying if you're trying to sell something, it's either going to have to be not cost people very much, or it's going to have really, really high reward before they're going to engage it. There's very little chance of this happening if it costs more than what they see that they're going to get from it. And this, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, this is a story. This is about rewards. And we don't think of it as much that way. But that's what it is. When Jesus was talking about the kingdom, there was really, really good news. He viewed this as being really good news. We're going to focus most on Matthew 5, and we're going to look at 8 to 12. But I want to underline again, who Jesus was talking to. And the reason that I think some of these Beatitudes don't fall on us like they did on the people back there is we don't see ourselves the way those people saw themselves. So let more on that. Verse 1 of Matthew 5, seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain. When he sat down, his disciples came to him. So seeing the crowds. Now again, understand, Jesus is offering something that's going to cost something. So for all of us, in everything in every marriage relationship, in every marriage here, in every marriage relationship, everything in life is saying, I'm being asked to give up something, what do I get in return? So whether it's focus right now, how do I get what I want? Or it is delayed gratification, saying there's something more important that's happening in the future. There is a cost-reward principle in every area of our life. So crowds were following Jesus. Who were they? So let's jump back into Matthew chapter 4. And you can just listen here or follow along. This is verse 23 of Matthew 4. And he went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. Gospel just means good news. When the Romans won a war, they would send a gospel crier that had the gospel that he was going to go and share with the people in the villages and the guys that were way down on the other side of where the war was being fought, and he had the gospel. He had the good news that he was bringing to them. The gospel means good news. The good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and we're getting into the crowd now, they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, like people whose bodies weren't working. Like these are people that the religious people would say you've done something wrong. You're a sinner. There's a reason why you are this way. The religious culture pushed them to the fringes, and so did the Roman culture. Those oppressed by demons, those having seizures and paralytics, and he healed them. And great crowds followed him. So these crowds are made up of broken people. They are the people that live on the wrong side of the tracks. They're living in the slums. These are people who are kind of the rubbish of society in that culture. And so when Jesus starts Matthew 5, if you don't hear anything else that I say, you have to connect with this. When Jesus starts Matthew 5, they hear him blessing them. They're talking about the people who are mourning and the meek, the people who see themselves as having nothing. They are saying he's talking to us. Jesus is talking to us. And so the people gathered on the mountainside there experienced something different than what we experience when we read this, because I have to try to put myself here. Does that make sense? Like, you know how it says where it's harder for the camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to inherit the kingdom? It's not impossible. Why is it hard? Just tell me. Why is it hard for a rich person to inherit the kingdom? It's easy to trust your own stuff. It's like you can, but do you understand that if you say, Jesus is my source, but right over here is $1 million, that's really hard. So think that way when you're looking at this. If you don't look around this hillside and see your people, if you don't look around and see these people are a mess, just like me, I'm a mess, we're on the fringes. See, I don't see myself that way. Because the way that I was raised is we have something to offer those people. And I'm not casting shade on it. I'm just saying this is how we are. I see myself as having something to offer the people who are on the margins, but I don't see myself there. Like, I'm not there. I'm like this lower middle class person who can totally provide for myself. There are other people who can't provide for themselves, so I have to give to them. There's relational resources. There's messed up marriages. There's all of these people that follow Jesus. I'm not that. So when I hear blessed are the poor in spirit, I'm thinking, what does that even mean? When these people heard Jesus talk for the first time, rabbis all over, all along, would have blessings. The Psalms, full of them. It starts out that way. It blesses. It's a blessing. The poems of the rabbis are full of blessings. So when Jesus started teaching these people, they were like, okay, blessing, sure. He may tell us how we're going to be blessed or what we need to do to be blessed. And he did not do that. He did the opposite of that. They heard someone say, I bless you the way you are. Now remember, these are people that are following him. So the crowds followed him, and from those crowds, the people that gathered in close were his disciples. Now up to this point, he had 4 chosen. He had, and earlier in 24, in chapter 24, is Peter and Andrew and James and John were the only apostles that were following Jesus yet. But there were many, many disciples. So there's lots of people that were following Jesus. So he was talking primarily to the people that were following him. If I don't see and the gospel does this. Religion does not allow you to see yourself sitting on a hillside full of people who have issues, because you don't have issues. You've cleaned those issues out of your life. Thank you, Jesus, for letting me clean things out of my life. So I'm not like other people are. I have things to offer them, but surely not me. Like, I'm not one of those people. And what the gospel does, the good news of the kingdom, at the same time says, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And then it pulls the weight right off and says, but that's not the point. That's not the point. It's like this great equalizer that Jesus comes in. And if I fail to see myself, for a lot of us, probably the biggest gift that we could do is if Jesus would allow us to see ourselves on that hillside and look around and say, these are my people. Like, these are my people. And all of a sudden, these blessings make sense. So we're going to go there. Well, I'm going to give you an illustration first. Let me do this. So there is a art museum, and the art in there is made by 2 people. There's a Tim Noble and a Sue Webster. This is not, I was listening to Tim Mackey talk about the Beatitudes, and he brings this in, and it is an excellent illustration, and I want to show this to you. And the picture is not a very good one. I'll work us through it here in just a little bit. It's hard to even see what that is. But what this is, they have a museum that is built around the stuff that they do. So this is beer cans, soda cans. There's a box that like a 12-pack that Coke goes in right there. And so when you first walk into this museum, you walk into a room and it's like a table of junk. And right away when I see this, I'm like, of course it's a table of junk. It's like, I don't even know what this is. And that's what makes it expensive, because no one knows. And it's like abstract, and they made something out of nothing, and it's super cool. But then what they do is they shine a spotlight on it. A light shines on it, and this is what's broadcast. Behind it is a light shining on what's in front of it. See, it's about perspective. It's about, like, I look and I see beer cans and rubbish, but the work is actually called the Manhattan skyline. It's the World Trade Centers there, and they're beer cans, and they're all shot through, and there's holes in them, and the light takes this junk, and it's about perspective. It's saying, what do you see when you look at this table? They look at this and they see something that could be. It could be. Here's another one. So this is just junk. It's just rubbish. But when you shine the light on it right, and the way that they organize it, there's people back there laying down, and you see it. And this is, to me, is just such a cool parallel with what we're looking at here in Matthew 5. You have marginalized people, homeless, people whose bodies aren't working properly, pushed to the side, they're slums. Nobody wants to have anything to do with them. But Jesus looks at this pile of junk, and he says, depending on how you look at this, depending on the filter that you use, there's something that's very, very valuable here. And that picture, to me, is Matthew 5. These people hear Jesus speaking to them, and he is speaking blessings over them that no one has blessed them before. Jesus sees behind the beer bottles a Manhattan skyline. He says, something is going to happen here. You are going to be the people that my kingdom is going to spread through. And he blesses them before he tells them the really hard things. The Roman army is going to demand that you carry him 1 mile. You're going to actually go 2 miles. But before he lays that on them, he tells them, you're going to hunger for a lot of things. And you will see them. They are going to come to you. So I want to kind of build more of a picture of this as we go through this, but primarily I'm going to focus on 8. But I want to talk just a bit about what Carlin shared last Sunday. This, to me, verse 6, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Now think of these people, broken, pushed to the fringes, slums, imperfect bodies, people that society hated, that did not see themselves bringing anything to the table. And Jesus tells them, so righteousness, the desire to see things the way that they're supposed to be. Jesus talks to a group of people and said, do you know how, like every time, everywhere that you go, you hunger for things to be the way that they're supposed to be? Righteousness. There's a way that things are supposed to be. And for those of you that are following me that hunger for a righteous God, righteousness is just things being restored the way they're supposed to be. When we want to help a mission, we're saying there's something on the earth that's broken, that's not working the way it's supposed to, and it's not okay, and we're going to bring righteousness into this situation. With these people, Jesus is saying everywhere that you go, you bump into things that aren't the way that they're supposed to be. For all of you that are hungering for that, you're going to be filled. Like, can you imagine how that falls on a family that is wrestling with the things when they're bringing things to Jesus that they want to change in their family? I have a son, I have a daughter that needs to be healed, things aren't right. Jesus says, if you're hungering for that, you're going to get what you're after. And they're so used to hearing that they have nothing to offer. So meek. Like seeing myself as having nothing to offer. That's exactly how they saw themselves. So when Jesus says, blessed are the meek, like you're going to actually inherit the earth. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Jesus was blessing them, not saying there's something that you have to try to see yourself as. He was talking to people and he was speaking their language they understood. So to me, verse 6, this doesn't have to be this for you. Verse 6 to me is really, really pivotal. Because when I see things that aren't the way that they should be, and I internalize those things, marriages, like you guys, us, when we look in each other's lives, there are things that are not the way that they should be. There's pain and there's brokenness there. And when I internalize that, and I'm like, just like, it makes me sad. And Jesus says, like, blessed are you. When you're mourning over these things, you're going to be comforted. If you frame this in people who have so little to offer, they have no political, no socioeconomic platform to make a difference from, and there's all of these needs that need to be stepped into. If you look at it from that standpoint and read these Beatitudes, all of a sudden people who are poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, who see that they have nothing to offer, who are hungering and thirsting for God to do his righteous work and make things the way they should be. Blessed are the merciful. Like I have no platform to make a huge difference in all of society like the Pharisees or the Roman leaders would, but I have a neighbor. And I know what it feels like to hunger for things to be made right, and I can do something in their life. Merciful. And then we get to the blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Remember, Jesus is talking to people who are seeing things that aren't the way that they should be. And Jesus is saying, you have a heart that you're stepping into things and you are longing for things to be the way that they should be. The deepest part of you, your intentions when you step in and you want to make a difference, I'm blessing you there. Verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers. When you see things that like everything around you, and their culture was this way, super divided. You have the have and you have the have-nots. Like the most as you have any time in a period of history. Here are all the people that have it together. You guys on the hillside are all the people that don't. And when you see things like that, and you're a peacemaker, and you step back in to restore and bring things together, for they shall be called sons of God, like you have the DNA of your Father in you. Blessed are those who are peacemakers, who put things back together again. And if you look at, so the next verse talks about persecution, and in some of these situations, if you just continue this thought on through, when you step into those situations, when something isn't righteous, when it's not the way that it should be, in your family, whatever it is, and you step in and you want to make a difference and you mediate, this is not the correct view of Jesus. The way you're seeing Jesus is not the way that it should be, and you bring that message to them specifically. Persecution happened. They were pushed back, and the word persecuted here means to make flee. Like, this is hostile enough that I'm going to remove myself from this situation. Persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you, and for these people, this would have been their language. Utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. You're following me now. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So I want to look at just wrap up with the idea of reward that Jesus talks about here. A hillside full of needy people who see themselves as broken and having needs. And Jesus says, the desires of your heart, the way that you were raised, just putting this into our vernacular, the way that you were raised, the tools that you were given that did not point you to Jesus, but pointed you to yourself. And it created in you now a hunger for more of Jesus. Jesus says, you're going to see that. That's going to be blessed. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So for some of those persecution things, we have to water that down. We're blessed to live in a place where we don't feel as much of that. But what Jesus talks about, enemies, anyone who's hostile towards you has hostile intent. That starts to break it down more into something that some of us, that gets pretty close to home. So when we look at cost, risk, reward, Jesus, his disciples, these people, us who are following him, he is saying the situation that you find yourself in, and as you hunger to make a difference in your marriage, in your lives, in the community around you, and you realize that you do not have what it takes to give you what you ultimately need and what the people around you need, those desires are going to be satisfied. And he brings in this idea of reward. And it's doing something to get something in return. Largely, so just in church culture is shied away from maybe doing something for what you get in return. We largely teach like do something expecting nothing in return, and I think part of that is accurate. But Jesus' teaching over and over, he mentions reward. Over and over, he mentions reward. So when we're stepping into areas, when you are stepping into areas of your life, and you understand that the world is broken, and you're going to do something about that. Something is not okay, and you're going to step into that space that the world, God's world today is broken. You are seeing something that God sees very much as well. And he says the sacrifices that you make, you will get rewarded for. And Jesus, if you read the Gospels and you look for the areas where Jesus uses the word reward, here's what you're doing. Here's what you're going to get a reward, or the reward that comes along with that. It is all over the place. It's all through the gospel. Now, we know that there's some parables that speak to that, but even aside from some of those things, reward is there. So what I am telling you, or what I would like for us to frame this as, is the hungering and thirsting for righteousness. I want us to be worshipers. I want us to be worshipers of Jesus, but we're so distracted. How can I lift up Jesus to where he is seen as worthy, to where this congregation of people falls on their knees before Jesus and says, like, you are worthy. I want that to happen. How do I engage that? As soon as you see something that you say it's not okay that it is this way, this is a broken model, and you step in to do something about it, pushback happens. Inside of you, it happens. The battle begins when you have a hunger and thirst for righteousness. There's an area that's not okay, and I'm going to do something about it. Jesus says, you have your reward coming. Matthew chapter 6. I'm going to read the first few verses here. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. This Sermon on the Mount. Just a few minutes later, he's talking about this. You're going to see something that's not okay, and you're going to want to do something about it. Now we're starting to do something about it. Beware of practicing your righteousness. There's our word. What we're hungering and thirsting for. We want people to be worshipers. We want things to work for them. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you. And they did this. You know the stories of the Pharisees. They actually had bells there. So sometimes it may have been a trumpet, but more often it was a bell. Someone would come along, they'd ring it. Someone would ring it if it was a really big gift that was given. As the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. They get a reward. Hey, I'm giving $10,000. Ring, ring, ring. Oh, that's awesome. $10,000. You are so generous. That's your reward. It's right there. It's there, right? You do something in front of everyone. Everyone's like, way to go. Jesus is saying, you just got your reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And some translations say openly. What you do, and when your motivation isn't, hey, look at me, even if no one sees it, when your motivation isn't that, Jesus says someday all of these things are going to be broadcast into the open, and you're going to be rewarded. Chase, can you pull the whiteboard over here? So keeping on going here. It talks about when you pray. I'm dropping down a few verses. Do not be like them. So it's talking about the Gentiles who, when they pray, they make a big deal about it. For your Father knows what you need before you ask him. So they're going out and the Pharisees are praying in the streets and they're making a big deal out of this. Jesus is saying, don't do that. Fasting. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face. What does that mean? Don't make it look like you're fasting, because these people would. And it'd be like, hey, man, you look pretty rough. Yeah, I've been fasting for like 20 days. And everybody's like, yeah, you have received your reward. Jesus is saying, don't do that. That your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father. I love this. Who is in secret. Do you catch it? Your Father who is in secret. In the Old Testament where it says that he inhabits the praise of his people, like he lives in praise, this has a little bit of the same feeling to me here. Your heavenly Father lives. Like the secret things, that's his area. Like that's where he's at. And it's not so much about whether people see it or not. It's my motivation. Do I want people to? 1 Corinthians talks about the good things that we do being put on an altar. And when all things are made new, the saved people, this isn't a heaven or hell thing, the saved people, the good deeds on the altar are going to get lit on fire. And all the stuff that had wrong motivations attached to it gets burned up. That's what Jesus is talking about, some of those things here. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. This is a story where Jesus talks about this. Mark 12. Then he sat down opposite the offering box and watched the crowd putting coins into it. Many rich people were throwing in large amounts. We see something that's unrighteous. We hunger to make a difference. Large amounts from rich people. Ring the bell. And then a poor widow came along and put in 2 small copper coins worth less than a penny. Jesus called his disciples. Hey, everybody, come here. Like, come here. Do you see what happened here? I tell you the truth, this poor widow has put more. He didn't even say metaphorically or hypothetically or, hey, I know the rich guy put in like $1 million. He said she put in more, because in the kingdom, the amount of zeros on the back of something may or may not even matter. Jesus can multiply whatever he needs to multiply, but she put more into the offering box than all the others. For she gave out of their wealth. They gave out of their wealth, but she gave out of her poverty. She gave out of it that says, I don't even know the effect that this is going to have on me. Like, I'm giving enough that I don't know how this difference is going to be made up, but there's something that I'm seeing that's not okay, and my money can help with that. She put in what she had to live on. She put in everything that she had. This is another story that Jesus tells about rewards. Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, in the renewal of all things, like when you don't have to hunger and thirst anymore, when you don't have to wish that you would connect deeply with people, when you don't have to wish that your mom and dad would see Jesus the way you do, when you wish that your family would just, everybody would love each other and get along, when nothing is broken anymore, when everything that you see is new. I can't even fathom that because I'm constantly talking to people and I'm gauging how I'm like, how is this coming across? Is this too strong? Is it not? What does it feel like when I walk in? All of these things, no more of that, because there's not even going to be a strain of subconscious underlying anything that isn't pure. It's going to be perfect. When that happens, in the renewal of all things, when Jesus, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, this is the part where I want us to key in on. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for the sake of my name, I'm just going to say this. Anything that you have sacrificed, anything that you have said, there's something that's not okay, and I'm willing to give up something that I have to change this. This is what Jesus says. You will receive 100-fold back for that. One translation in Mark, this is in Matthew 19, says, in this life as well as in the next. That the things that you do, when you are willing to give up something that is an important thing to you, when you are saying, for the sake of Jesus, I am willing to do whatever it is, Jesus says, I notice those things. And you will be rewarded 100 times. I don't know what 100 times means. Does that mean literally? I'm not sure, but here's what I get this is kind of what I get the picture of. And I don't know if this is totally accurate. I just have to tie this back around to the things that we see that we're trying to make a difference in. Like broken people who don't see themselves as having all of the answers. That's the disconnect for us. It's hard for me to step into this because it's like, oh, I do have resources, so it makes sense that I could make a difference. Jesus is talking to people that says, and he is telling his followers, unless you see yourself as this. That's the difficult thing for me, to see myself the way that Jesus sees me. So this is to me kind of what I would see. So I'm going to say this is time. So this is just the time that we live in, and we are down here, and we're doing things, and we're giving money, and we're doing the type of things that Jesus is saying, when you do these things, when you do them and you just don't care if it's seen or not. That's not the deal. The deal is you're trying to make a difference. You are looking at the things around you that are broken and say, I feel the need to make a difference. And you engage here. I think something happens. I think those good deeds that you're doing, they like exit time. Time, this box is ring, ring, $10,000, everybody claps, you've received your reward. It's done. The things that are done in secret, that your motivation wasn't for applause of men, I believe that what Jesus talks about is there's coming a time when, we're just going to call this eternity, or all things new, that Jesus is going to sit on his throne, and all of these things that we did that we didn't even care if people found out about, like those prayers that we just took people into the presence of Jesus because that's what we do for people, and we pray for them and we help carry their weight spiritually, or needs that we made, people that we invited in. The giving of our resources, the inconveniencing of ourselves, that we are less concerned about people finding out about it than that we actually helped. These are the things that I believe go forward until this time when Jesus says there's coming a time when I'm going to be sitting on a throne, and those of you who have sacrificed, you're going to get 100 times back what it cost you. And the Bible also teaches that as these good deeds go forward, there's deposits that happen right now. Jesus talks about some of these things in the Sermon on the Mount, that it's not just saying, It's all in heaven. The kingdom that Jesus is talking about is now. And so there are benefits here. There are a way that things work. Life does, in some instances, work better when we give ourselves over to Jesus' way. This, to me, is just such a huge concept that says, my heavenly Father is in, lives in, inhabits behind the scenes spaces. That when we're doing things and we don't care who gets the credit, Jesus says, I see those things. So people sitting on a hill, disciples, followers of Jesus who feel that they don't have anything to offer, or maybe for some of us, we feel that we do. And whether you're talking on a stage or not on a stage, or no one sees the things that you do, the motivations of my heart matter. And Jesus says, I'm paying attention. And his message to these people was, you think that you have so little to offer, like you are seen. And you matter, and I am choosing to take my kingdom and advance it, and it's going to be perpetuated. It's going to work through people just like you. For me, I want to keep those things in front of me. Number one, I have to be sitting on that hillside and look around and see my people. I have to. If I don't, I'm going to have to try to visualize. What are you talking about here to be poor in spirit? Like, what does it mean to put myself into this? If the weight of the gospel falls on me, I see myself there. And number two, like the risk-reward thing. What am I getting for what I return? Jesus says, he is very clear throughout his gospel, there is a reward coming. And in some cases, I don't even know what this all means. It's 100 times. So if we can kind of push pause on gratification, man, it'd be nice for people to know that I gave $10,000 right here. And say, if I can align my heart with Jesus' heart, this Sermon on the Mount teaching, if I don't care who gets the credit for this stuff goes forward and it gets deposited in whatever kind of thing it gets deposited in until Jesus is sitting on his throne, and he'll call up people that you never thought were a big deal, and he's saying the last are going to be first. Like people like moms who prayed, and they never were they seen much, but they were intercessors for the needs of people around you. I believe people like that, we're going to be like, oh my, like I did not see that coming. And we're going to think we have so little to offer. And Jesus says, when you see yourself as that, blessed are the meek, because you've got something coming. There's something that you're going to inherit. I want us to have that in mind as we step into seeing things that are not righteous, and we're going to make a difference. What is our motivation behind it? Those things matter. And we would see those broken people, and as we expand our borders out to include that, it's not reaching out. It's not reaching down. We're broken people who have found Jesus, and we can offer that to other people. And sometimes it looks like other people who were raised in Sunday school. And sometimes it looks like people who are living on the side of the street and have nothing in common with us. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for your word. Thank you for the way that you taught and the way you accept us. And for us who feel that we are clean and cleaned up and have so much to offer, like we being the source, would you show us who we are before you? Begin to put in our minds the idea of reward. You are a rewarder. The things that we do, the businesses that we build, the things that we do can be very, very short. We can get a reward right now, brief applause of people, or we can do something that's just eternal. Help us to see ourselves for who we are, broken people with physical bodies and spiritual bodies who aren't working properly, that you are blessing, and to see ourselves as people that your kingdom works through, and that you pay attention to the things that we do. Thank you for being good, and thank you for being a rewarder. In your name I pray, amen. Kids,